Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'll be doing my November wrap-up. As you can see behind me, I've added some fairy lights. I just got them yesterday. I thought I'd add a little atmosphere for Christmas. That's actually all the decorating I've done so far. I was hoping to have the tree up by now, but haven't quite gotten around to it. And if you hear a strange noise, my dog is like digging on her bed in the distance. Oh well. So let's get started. I read 10 books this month, a lot of manga and graphic novel, but some novels as well. I read the 8th volume of Y the Last Man. This is entitled Kimono Dragons, and it's by Brian K. Vaughan. Of course, this is about a world where some kind of strange plague of some sort instantly wipes out almost all the male population except one man named Yorick Kane. It's a really interesting series. I'm curious to see where this is all going to go. I mean, there's only like 2 more volumes left. But it's kind of bizarre sometimes because some of the women, the way they act in the series, like their motivations for things, it's like you realize how dire the straits are, the world is in. This could be the last generation living on the planet. Yeah, they act kind of bizarre sometimes, but and there's different groups kind of going against each other. Everybody should be pulling together. Hello. Instead of like practically nearly trying to kill him. It's weird, but I'm really curious to see where it's going to go. In 2 more remaining volumes, but overall I gave this 4 stars. In a similar series, theme I should say, because this is a manga coming up, in this particular manga there is a thing called the Red Pox Plague that has wiped out about 80% of the population in Japan during the feudal era, and this is called Oku, the Final Chambers, and of the Inner Chambers, sorry, by Fumi Yoshinaga, and this is volume 3 and volume 4. I'm absolutely loving this series. The artwork is just beautiful. You can tell by these covers here. Shows you a little bit of the work. Find a really good image in here. Well, I'll just leave it there. No, I don't want to show you that. Just the details in the faces and stuff. Really, really beautiful. And I gave both of these 5 stars. It's just interesting series, almost like an epic love story. There's political intrigue throughout it. The country at this point is suffering famine and unrest, and they're not happy with the current female running, as the shogun. And it's interesting how they're trying to keep this whole devastation of the male population secret from the rest of the world too, kind of to protect the country from invaders and things like that. But it's a very, very well written series, and obviously beautifully illustrated. There is some explicit content in here, so it is a bit for more mature readers, but absolutely, definitely recommend this for any adult readers. Really worth picking up. Then I also read volume 3 of Sweet Tooth by Jeff Lemire. Love this cover. Super clever. This is Gus, a hybrid child. He's part deer, and this is some kind of, again, another disease that sort of attacked the population. Several people have died, but now the children being born are born as hybrid children, and Gus was at one point living with his father. When he dies, he's sort of on his own, and he meets a man named Jeppard who kind of takes him under his wing and says he's going to take him someplace, for safety and stuff. But I won't go into the earlier volumes and all the detail of it, but what I liked about this particular volume is the growth we see in Gus's character. He encounters some other hybrid children, some a bit more, a bit younger, and also more towards the animal characteristics than humans, so they're having a little bit more difficult time dealing with, people they encounter and stuff like that. And so he kind of takes them under his wing and is protecting them, and right now they're sort of escaping from people who are after them. Jeppard's character is pretty interesting too. Like I said, we find out more about his character in the previous volume, and I sort of like the turn his character is now taking again, and I'm curious to find out what happens next. So I gave this one 5 stars. On to some of the books I read. I read Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. I've had this kind of sitting on my shelf for a while. I think just about everybody's read it, I feel like, but me. And I actually forgot to put this on my Goodreads currently reading list when I was reading it in November, so I've just sort of added it in now and put my rating up and everything, which I gave it 5 stars to. But it's going to show like I read it in December, which I didn't. I read it in November. But it's just a beautifully written book. It's written first person from Melinda Sordino, who she's sort of like the pariah, you might say. At the end of her school term, before she was entering into high school, she was at a party. Things kind of took a turn for the worse, and she ended up calling the police. But just as they arrive, she sort of takes off and leaves. And now everyone thinks that she just did it to get everybody else in trouble, and her friends turn on her and everything. But And anybody that she meets now in the new high school and stuff pretty much wants nothing to do with her. She's, like I said, she's like the local pariah, and lots of bullying things going on. But there's not a whole lot of dialogue in a way in this book. It's a lot inside her head, because that, for her, like she says, the safest place for her is in her own head. And there's so many times as you're reading this, you just want her to speak and just say, something. And it's the way she just, like, someone will say something and it just says, me, silence. And you can just imagine what she's going through. But I found it difficult to comprehend her friends. Friends, I'll put that in quotes. What was the one girl's name? Rachel, and she starts calling herself Rochelle or something, when she, takes on this whole different personality when she goes into high school to be someone other than she is to fit in, whereas Melinda is just not going to fit in. No one's going to let her fit in. But it's deals with a lot of things like peer pressure and cliques and just being, just fitting in with everybody, and bullying. Definitely deals with that topic. And this is a very moving book, and I highly recommend it. It was just beautifully written, like I said, and I gave it 5 stars. I finished the kid series by Nancy Springer, the Enola Holmes mystery series. This particular one is The Case of the Gypsy Goodbye. Enola Holmes is, of course, the younger sister of Sherlock and Mycroft Holmes. And as the series opens up, their mother kind of disappears, and she's sort of on her own. And Mycroft wants to put her in a boarding school for young women to, learn how to behave properly and stuff. But she's very free-spirited. She learned to be that way from her mother. And she sort of sets out off on her own to try and discover what happened to her mother, using her own sort of detective skills. She's quite kind of a chip off the old block, in a way, of her brothers. It was just a really delightful series. It's not written down to kids. It's definitely something that adults will enjoy reading, and it's just really, really delightful. And this one has just all the feels in it. Just all the feels. Gave this one 5 stars. I finally tackled this beast, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Yes, I planned on reading this so many years, and I finally determined to sit down and read it. And I did. It's definitely an accessible classic. It's not written really, old-style language that you find bogged down. I was really liked the character of Jane Eyre. I like the way the story opens up. She's living with her aunt and cousins, an aunt who doesn't really want anything to do with her. She shows really no love towards Jane. She sort of gave a promise to her husband as he was dying that she would look after his niece, and very reluctantly does so. But like I said, a lot of bullying going on with her cousins and stuff. Finally, Jane snaps and turns on the cousin, and that leads her to be sent to a boarding school where she's labeled as a troublemaker and, again, mistreated away in the school too. But she learns to persevere and make a life for herself as a teacher, and eventually a governess at Thornfield Hall, where she meets Mr. Rochester. Now, overall, the story is about a lot about the relationship and the secret that Mr. Rochester is hiding and things like that. But the main thing I found difficult with this book was understanding her relationship or her feelings towards Mr. Rochester. He's not a very likable man. He's very harsh when he speaks to her in the beginning. He's seldom there. So that aspect of her feelings and his feelings for her, I found difficult to kind of relate to, I guess, is the best way to put it. But the things that are uncovered about his secret and all that is very intriguing, and the situations that take place beyond that were also interesting. Some parts after the revelation, I'll just call it the big revelation, I wasn't aware of. I mean, I kind of knew the general story of Jane Eyre, but not some of the more specific parts of it. And those I found very interesting as well. And I liked her character, and she says she puts up with a lot of stuff up to a point, and then it's like, that's it, and, but yeah, I definitely liked the character. Like I said, I enjoyed the book overall, but that aspect between their relationship I found difficult, and I only gave that 4 stars. So, not quite my favorite classic of all times in any way. I also read, or actually listened to, The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. And that is the cover. This is a book I'd kind of had on my radar for a while. I heard a sort of possibly ghost story, a haunted house type story. And I have to say, overall, I was rather disappointed in it. It's about a family named the Ayers family living in this huge mansion that is sort of like in its decline. They aren't able to financially look after the place anymore, and they're shutting up rooms, and things are kind of like falling apart around them. And there's this Dr. Faraday, who as a boy visited the manor house quite often because his mother worked there as part of the staff. And now he's returned there to look after, or he's called there one night to look after the one kind of remaining staff member there who comes down ill. There's only the mother and her 2 grown children living there at this point, and then, like I said, a cook and one staff member. And so he's brought back into this house and remembering his childhood there and things like that, and kind of reconnecting with the family. And he spends a lot more time there, kind of constantly revisiting. And strange things start to happen, particularly around the eldest son, who looks after the finances of the house and stuff. And odd things start to happen, and you start to wonder: is there some sort of ghostly thing going on in the house? Is it their imagination? Is it something wrong with the family? Is there madness in the family? You don't know, but these situations that sort of pop up are few and far between. And I actually found the book kind of boring. The characters themselves were interesting, but the incidences and things that happen within the book weren't that interesting. They weren't frequent enough or intriguing enough to really draw me in and make me want to kind of find out more. I was just waiting to reach the end of the book, I have to say. The author does a really good job in terms of character development and descriptions, especially of the house. You can almost feel like the stains and the dampness of the wallpaper and the dust and things like that, But again, the situation and the plot was just a little too slow and a little too boring for me. Online, I also read Tokyo Ghoul Volume 1, and it's by Sui Ishida. That's the cover. It's sort of a horror manga, and unfortunately I haven't been able to find a physical copy of it. I mean, I'd like to support the industry by actually buying a copy rather than reading it online, but all I can find is like German copies used and stuff like that on Amazon. It seems to have maybe gone out of print. I don't know. I'm hoping they'll reissue it, but for now all I can do is read it online. But it is sort of about superhuman creatures. They're superhuman, they look human, but they can transform, and they are called ghouls, and they survive by eating human flesh. And it's sort of about a group of humans that are out to capture or kill these ghouls before they kill the human population. There are lots of characters to kind of keep track of. Our main character is Kaneki Ken. He's sort of a vulnerable kind of young man, but something happens to him where they have to transplant some of his organs, and they use ghoul organs, so he's sort of part ghoul, part human, even though he's still going after the ghouls. And this particular aspect of the story reminded me a lot of Blue Exorcist, which has a similar kind of theme where they go after demons, but the one kid is actually a demon himself. So that kind of aspect kind of reminded me of it. But this is much more gruesome in terms of the artwork and things, kind of almost stomach churning for a black and white comic. But the artwork is just amazing. I mean, look at the detail in this cover alone. Is just wonderful. So I'm assuming this is probably like for mature readers as well. But I'm really looking forward to finding out more of what's going on in the series. I believe it's also an anime, so I might try and look into that. But overall, I gave that 5 stars. The last book I read was Theodosia and the Last Pharaoh by R.L. Lefevre. And this is just a wonderful middle grade series about a young girl whose parents kind of work in a museum picking up artifacts and things like that. And she can sense and remove the evil curses and things like that from these artifacts. She can sense them. This particular issue takes us to Egypt, which I really love, the change in setting from London. And we find out a lot more about Theodosia, about her background, where she's from. She was actually born in Egypt. There's also some revelations about her cat, Isis. There's a little bit more than just a cat. Yeah, it's just lots of great characters in it. We have the Serpents of Chaos, sort of an evil group that are out to steal these artifacts and also want her because of her abilities and things like that. Really, really well written and lots of great mysteries and things. And she's really put to the test for such a young girl. And it's interesting the way the story ended. I'm curious to see what's going to happen next. Yeah, I don't know how many books are planned. There's no, like, information about another book. I just got a text message. There's no other information about any other books coming out in the near future. So I don't know if she's busy working on the other series with the Nun Assassins. Grave Matters, I think, is the first book in that one. Haven't read that series, but hopefully she'll focus again on this one and continue writing this pretty soon, because I really, really enjoyed this series. I highly recommend it for young readers and adult readers as well. And I gave it 5 stars. So that's my November wrap-up. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books and what you thought about them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye-bye.